Welcome to Cats and Rats Podcast, covering your Florida Panthers.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Cats and Rats Podcast, number 21 here. Episode 20 with my co-host Cody Stevens was very emotional. The Panthers winning their first ever Stanley Cup in 30 years. How long Cody and myself have been with this organization. Just a lot of emotions, and we're definitely going to go through some of that stuff throughout the summer here. But it's going to be an interesting dichotomy, I feel, with fans wanting to talk about the Stanley Cup and those memories, and ones that want to move forward, which we're going to kind of do in this episode here, episode number 21, of new additions, departures, and that type of stuff. So it's going to be really interesting how, Cody and I, we do our post-game spaces. We did 2 this week, which we'll get into here this episode. I know there was no games to be played, but there was a couple special announcements with the organization here that we're going to get into. So fans that want to talk about that stuff or want to kind of revel in this summer being Stanley Cup champions, I think, listening to us, we're going to give you a blend of both. But this episode is kind of more like transitioning to what's happened here. July 1st, free agency, big signings, big departures, new additions. So this is going to be a jam-packed episode. But we go from a whirlwind week of the Stanley Cup parade. Last recording, we were seeing the players at the Adel establishment. Roberto Luongo celebrating at his in-laws restaurant. And then right from that, you hit the Stanley Cup parade, which I know Cody and I will talk about throughout this episode and even throughout future episodes here. But then right into free agency. And that's just how this NHL is now constructed, with the late season push, way into June. July 1st is always free agency. So Panther fans, really, their heads are spinning right now with all of this. So we're going to try to bring everyone together here, Cody, and kind of break down everything here. But before we get started, anything off the top here, Cody? It's been a crazy week, as they said.
It has. I mean, once shout out to the NHL for this genius scheduling.
Mm-hmm. Which again, myself and Pierre LeBrun want to make changes on this, and we've said it for about 3-4 years now. Start earlier in September. You're going to compete with football no matter what, Cody. College, pro, it's there.
Yeah, but as long as you don't compete with football playoffs, I think you're good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But and that first week of college football, the first week of NFL, but you could start it that second, third weekend to the NFL and just be fine. And then you're not going so late into June, which fan interest starts to wane. Let's be honest. We've been to 2 Stanley Cups. Other fans, they're already 2.5 months into the offseason. They're not interested in watching a Stanley Cup final. 1 game a night, 1 game every 3 nights. It's a crazy schedule, and this is what's put the Panthers really up against it here coming into this free agency
Most
period.
Definitely. And I mean, you had a week to figure out the whole free agent situation. You had the parade, the players going out partying, just enjoying winning a Stanley Cup.
Media.
Just all the media. I don't even think we did exit interviews.
I don't even know. I haven't even heard the Zeno stuff yet. Also, the autograph signings that these players were getting pulled left, right, and center. Some of them were UFAs, but just getting pulled in every direction. So it was crazy times.
But as you, the listener, know how crucial every day is now. I mean, with the first contract extension we're going to get into wasn't made official until 12:46 at night.
Cody, you and I stayed awake for this one, and if you guys didn't listen to our Spaces replay episode, Sam Reinhart extended for 8 years at 8.6 AAV. Cody, I know you're a big Reinhart fan. I'm a huge Reinhart fan. We love this guy. What are your initial thoughts on this? As we've already kind of broken it down to our community, but people listen to podcasts here. Yeah, I love it too.
Prior to this deal, me and you, I think we both were man, you could have got this done last summer and maybe save money, but he probably would have saved the 0.6. He would have got 8 anyway.
Yeah, what was he, 6'5", 7.5 to 8 maybe? He would want an increase, Yeah, maybe that 0.6. Yeah, he's right on the 8.
Yeah, but after last season, I mean, one of the best seasons in Panthers history, individual seasons in Panthers history. And you get him for 8.6, because you guys got to understand something. He could have easily, and I mean most easily, got 10.5, 11 on the market easily.
Oh yeah, the Chicago Blackhawks,
Nashville,
Seattle Kraken, Nashville. That was big time players.
Like Utah was slinging money. Like just
Mm-hmm.
he could have easily got that, and I mean most definitely easy. But but the Panthers gave him a good deal at 8.6, and he accepted it. I mean, just and like I said, with me and Kirby all the time has like we talk about aging players and what players you need to keep that will age well. And me and you, Kirby, always say like players that play their biggest strength is their IQ will always get better with age. And Reinhart is one of those players.
Yeah, that was what I was as an athlete, as a coach, as a recruiter. I was always looking for in basketball or any sports that I'm kind of always using that scout eye or that coaching eye. Even when I go to a hockey rink, I'm like, who's the smartest player out on this ice right now? Who's going to make plays at the end of the game that are going to be a determining factor? Sam Reinhart will always have on his nameplate game-winning goal, Stanley Cup final, Game 7. How many guys can say that? And Cody, I was going to tweet this out. I haven't tweeted out yet, but I'm going to let our podcast audience know this first. Sam Reinhart had a career high in shooting percentage this season.
Yep.
He was second in the NHL in goals scored from the slot with 48. He had 70 tipped shot attempts this season. He led the Panthers on the power play in scoring chances, expected goals, and shots from the slot. And
Yep.
and you and I, we're eye test guys, but there's some analytics, there's some deep numbers for you. But the eye test, it just passes. And like I said,
Yep.
he's going to age like fine wine.
And for those of you who are wondering, like, oh, he's like, I'm worried he's going to regress. He's going to regress, no doubt. But maybe to like 40 goals, maybe.
Yeah, that's what one of our co-hosts, Vincent, has him at. Maybe his shooting percentage drops to about 18-19%. I think he was mid-20s there. I think he was first in the NHL in shooting percentage this year, if I'm not mistaken.
I wouldn't be surprised. But here's the thing, and like for those of you who are worried that he might regress, he had a almost career, like one of the worst shooting percentage of his career last season at 13.7. That was the lowest shooting percentage he had since let's see here, 2018-19.
Mm-hmm.
And he scored 31 goals
Sorry, go ahead, Cody.
On a career low shooting percentage. He scored 30 still.
16 power play goals 2 seasons ago. Last season, he matched that 16 again. And this year, what was it, in the 20s or something?
Yeah. Yep, he had 16. He jumped up to 27.
27. So find that balance somewhere between 16 and 27. Even the low 20s, Cody, pretty good if you're capitalizing that much on the power play. Guy that really, if you look at it, carried our power play this year.
Oh, most definitely.
Like you look at any guys, Matthew Tkachuk having the season he had wasn't the season he had last year. And a lot of that wasn't on the power play with him being the catalyst for that. Of course, someone had to set up Reinhart, Barkov, Tkachuk, but it was Sam Reinhart every night on the power play. And that's where, teams started to take that away from us in the playoffs, and you're going to have to adapt that. We're going to get into later some additions to the Panthers that maybe there's a new power play piece or two. You're trying to be a little optimistic on that. But everything that Sam Reinhart does, Cody, we talk about how all-purpose player he is.
Just cerebral, plays every single moment. He'll play against the team's best line, their best penalty kill, and also score on the power play. And all that for 8.6, I mean... especially with the salary cap going up, because remember, listener, salary cap going up, this is more about like a $9 million deal when the past salary cap. So this
and Cody, you know who's salty right now? The Canadian media. The no state income tax thing. Oh my, are they ever fired up about the Sam Reinhart stuff? And I'm not talking the insiders and analysts. I'm talking the hosts, the desk people on the highlight shows. They're mentioning Sam Reinhart saying, look at the deal. Where's William Nylander at 11.5?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yes, 11.
They're putting like that Reinhart Nylander there. And they might be saying Nylander's a better player. If people want to say that, I'm fine with that. But they're so upset with the discrepancy of the Nylander deal at that 11.5 range and then Reinhart at the 8.6 range. That's a big gap.
Just like, of course, you're going to have Toronto media doing that because you have 4 forwards making close to 11 million.
Well, and they know we're not going away, Cody.
Yeah.
We'll talk about all the additions, subtractions here, but the core pieces.
Like, the core is going to be set. I would not be surprised if there is a Verhaeghe extension later this summer, because I think that's when that needs to be done also.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We won't get into that other name that we're going to get into here in a second, because that's a spicy meatball.
It's a spicy one, but people are not going to like it. But
Yeah.
It's just
anything else on the Reinhart front there, Cody? We'll
just
talk about Reinhart throughout the summer.
great extension. Like I said, it was one that needed to be done. He was priority number one going into the season, and it stayed that way.
Yep, that was my year's number one. It was from all the way. I know Forslings. We're going to mention another guy that we sadly lost. But yeah, Reinhart was the number one priority. They waited as long as they could, right to that last hour, so they could get that extra 8th year, Cody. That's what we were worried about. And that's why we stayed up. We stayed up past the deadline. And again, everyone that's used to these July 1st free agency periods, don't go to bed right when that clock strikes 0, because there's deals that come in after that, you know? So you got to hang in there. And again, we were the first. I know Armando on the Locked On Network was the first podcast to record something, but if you guys are with us with Twitter X Spaces, we're going to be there first. And you know, the Florida media, they're going away on holidays. Like, they're not covering stuff at this time. You know, this is their end of year and things like that. So they might get like a short podcast out there and things like that. But make sure you're covering us here at the Cats and Rats podcast, following us here on the YouTube channel, because we'll have all that coverage there for you. Yep. Now, the other big news, Cody, happened today as of this recording. Anton Lundell, 6-year extension, $5 million AAV. We thought maybe a bridge deal was in his future. If it was a longer extension, you wonder maybe if that would be that extra year on there, what the price tag would be. But what is your thoughts here? Anton Lundell locked up for 6 years, long-term here with the Florida Panthers at that $5 million.
I was shocked that it was 6 years, but like I said, I thought it'd be a bridge, but I'm not upset by it. I actually like the deal because you know, $5 million is about to be $4 million, like, you know, and so on and so forth. But I think he had his coming up party this postseason. I truly did, because in the back half of both the Boston series and the Rangers series, his line was the best line, and that line killed Boston and New York.
I loved him in the Boston series. A standout player like he was in the Stanley Cup final in the Vegas series. I know we went down in 5 games, but that really brought me back to what he did in the Vegas series for us, being one of our top players.
Yeah, and it's just like I said, like, all spaces, because, you know, people like get on him during the regular season because he doesn't have that much, you know, production, you know. But me and Nick were always on the same boat. Like, you need to get him some good wingers, and he will show you what he can do. Because here's the thing, he's still young. He can't really play drive quite yet.
Yeah, as much as you love Lusto, Cody, when you put Lundell with Lusto and then a plug-and-play guy, it's been Tarasenko, it's been Erod, it's been this guy, that guy.
They can do something.
It's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to say to Lundell, like do everything out there, including offensively. You're not playing with Verhaeghe a lot of nights. You're not playing with Tkachuk. You're not playing with Barkov, obviously, being the center position. You're no longer playing with Reinhart like you did with that Reinhart, Marchment, Lundell line that was like the best third line in hockey. So what's that going to look like now moving forward with Lundell on this long-term contract? Bennett's got the 1 year left. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how they incorporate him more into the offense, maybe some more power play time. It'll be interesting. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
People aren't going to like this, but I believe Bennett's gone after this year.
You and I've said that for
just because the money he can command out there on the open market, and how much teams value him, and like the playoffs, like, he's huge. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, money.
Like, he's big in the playoffs. But the thing is just, I think Lundell outplayed him.
Yeah, and you know, Bennett's dealing with the hand injury there.
Yeah, almost.
But again, like that's a fluke injury. But also, you take that away, Bennett gets banged up a lot. You know, there's points in the year where Lundell is playing the 2C because out of necessity and injury to Bennett. And they've got to see Lundell now over the last couple seasons, Cody, probably 4 or 5 times at that spot. And he's looked really good with Tkachuk. He scores the overtime winner in the Ottawa regular season game this year, 3-on-3 with Tkachuk on the ice. The Montreal game last season, he looked really good with Tkachuk there.
And then
Tkachuk
don't forget Tampa Game 3 this postseason.
Yeah, Tampa Game 3 this postseason. Tkachuk looks like a different player out there when he's playing with a bit more of a younger legs, dynamic Lundell. I love the things that Bennett does out there on the ice, but watch how Tkachuk looks with Lundell versus Bennett. It's a stark contrast.
It's just like, and I begin to ask myself this question, outside of, like, you know, the physicality and the shooting and maybe skating, what else does Bennett do better than Lundell?
And go back, Cody, and look at Bennett, which I did this past week, what he looked like with Huberdeau during, I believe.
He was
the
way more
President's
of a
Trophy.
perimeter player. Way more
Of a perimeter player, but also relied on his shot more, where you're not seeing that shot from the outside as much with Bennett playing with Kachuk. You see that more net drive and the cycle game, get to the front of the net, which we love and which you do need. But how does that age, and how does that become, a $6 million price tag when, Lundell is pushing a 2C spot? And you would think over the next duration of Bennett's future contract, he would probably slide down to a top 9 forward. That it all comes down to the salary cap, everyone. I'd love to, if this was a non-salary cap league,
you're keeping Sam Bennett.
You could keep it. All the money that they've made over the last 2 Stanley Cups here, all the revenue that they're bringing in, you're keeping them. But in a cap era where the holes, which we'll get into later, the holes that we have on the back end, all the money that we're paying to the goaltending position, how do you open up cap? That's one of the areas that you do, because I think Lundell's primed and ready in the next 12, 24 months here. I even thought maybe earlier to be a two-line center, number 2 center.
I mean, even when Bennett came back, that Lundell line was so good, they didn't break it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember the Boston series, the first part
there were no rush.
Bennett was on the second. Bennett was on the third line. What the problem was, Bennett couldn't get going on the third line, so they switched back.
And doesn't that show you, Cody? Yes, we have depth, but Lundell can't do everything on that third line, because you see Bennett, and he's coming back from the injury and working his way back, but he didn't produce a lot of offense or create or line drive.
He got hot towards the end of the Rangers series going into the Stanley Cup final. But it's just but through the whole postseason, Anton Lundell, I can name a lot of clutch moments from him. The goal against Boston in Game 6 where we played horrible. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
We were bad.
Who was good out there? What lines were good out there? What pairings? It was just not good hockey. And Anton Lundell kind of shined in that mucky style of game. So you can't just say Lundell's a perimeter-based guy, a skill guy. All this playoff experience that he's had has been very beneficial. And you see in Paul Maurice's pressers how much glowingly he is about Anton Lundell, and how, I remember, Cody, we talked with our fans last year and they said, Paul Maurice has to change for Anton Lundell so he can become the player that he can hopefully be. No. You don't do that at 20, 21, 22 years old and tell that to a veteran, experienced coach. A fan base, a player himself, you have to adapt to what the coach is asking you to do. And we have seen the evolution of Anton Lundell in the Paul Maurice system.
And it's just, I'm a big Lundell guy. It's just, I'm watching him in the postseason. I'm watching him come in big moment after moment after moment. He's beginning to have a clutch gene, because I can name you a bunch of times. Once again, that Boston game where we were stuck in the mud, he scores a big goal. Mm-hmm. And then what about, Rangers Game 5? Who scored the game winner in that game? Anton Lundell.
And you go back to Toronto and Vegas last year. He's building a sample size of the playoffs. Now, he's got pedestrian regular season numbers, but again, Cody, I think that's with the personnel that he's playing with on the third line. Put him with Verhaeghe and Kachuk. I even said this today, in a future second line scenario. I know people don't want to change it up right now with the season that Reinhart and Barkov had, but how about a second line down the road of Kachuk, Lundell, Reinhart? Oh my God. You've got everything there.
Yeah, and also to a point, can you really, and Bennett, and going back to Bennett, his regular season numbers ain't sparkling.
No.
He hasn't even cracked 50 points. He's had 28 goals one year.
We've had defensemen in recent memory record more points than Sam Bennett. Now, it's not all about points, but
when you're a second line center, it has to. Top 6, I think points matter, because that's where all most of your production is going to come from. Mm-hmm. Those are your power play guys. Those are the guys who are out there during winning time. You need points. Points don't matter towards certain other things, but I think when you're a player a second line center, I think points matter to a little bit.
And when you're a cup team, you start to lose players, cup tax. That's where pressure is on a guy like Sam Bennett in the regular season to produce more points in an 82 game season, because otherwise it's going to be a grind just to get through the regular season. That's 60-70% of the battle to get through the regular season to clinch a playoff spot. I think that's the most difficult path for us, Cody, going into this offseason and into next year, because of these 2 elongated seasons by us with these long playoff runs. It's not about when we get in the playoffs. It's how we get in and if. And I don't think it's an if. I think we do. But, if there's any stumbling along the way, you need production throughout your lineup. And that's the second line there that, we need that production from the start of next year. It's going to be really big. Like, is Tkachuk going to kind of get back to where he was 2 years ago or what he was this last season? Because, we talked about Tkachuk not putting up production. People like, he's still putting up points, but I think he's got to get closer back to where he was 2 years ago than where he was this past year. He needs to find
a middle ground, because 2 years ago, I think it's like a little bit,
It is ambitious.
Like, because that was MVP type stuff. And I don't think necessarily you're going to need that from Florida this upcoming season, because you still have most of the core.
Like, but 2 years ago, you saw Tkachuk carry us. Last year, it's Barkov. This past year, it's Barkov. So, is it going to be a mix next year? With Tkachuk, those two lines.
But Tkachuk really needs to get off to a better start. Like, he was hot during January, then February, and a little bit of March. But you got to start out better.
And he cooled off at the end of the year in the playoffs. But he also cooled off at the beginning of the year, and people could say that's him working his way back from the sternum injury. But kind of good in the middle part of the year, beginning of the year, end of the year, kind of So again, I think that plays with who his center is. So if we see Lundell getting some looks there, it'll be very interesting. But we'll talk about this all summer. Is that everything kind of on the Lundell front there, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people are going to like the number right now, but in 2-3 years, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, we have him for $5 million for the next 3 seasons. Oh, we're set.
Yeah, and you got to look at teams like the Montreal Canadiens. I know it's a first overall pick, but Juraj Slafkovsky, the big contract extension that he got coming off of an RFA, right? They extended him right away. So again, that's kind of where this league is going, paying for players what you're going to do, not what you've done. So again, July 1st can get really wacky with all that. But Anton Lundell being an RFA, I wasn't worried about. But before we get into the departures here, Cody, there was one other interesting signing by the Florida Panthers. I just wanted to touch on it briefly here. Dmitry Kulikov, a real head-scratcher deal for me. Re-signed for a 4-year deal at an AAV of $1.15 million. What do you think about Dmitry Kulikov return to Florida here?
I thought if he did, I thought he would retire, to be honest. I thought he was retiring. But if we did re-sign him, I thought, okay, 2 years. 4? But for that AAV, I mean, I'm not going to be too upset.
Yeah, it's
1.15. I can bury that in the AHL if I need to.
But how often did you see deals like that with veteran guys? 4-year extension. It's weird. It's odd, because you and I, we pay attention to what's going on around the NHL, so we don't just look at it from a Florida one. Yeah, I don't. And people say, well, he wants to work in the front office. Okay, he could work in the front office after, fine. But did you have to give him 4? You could have given him 1. You said 2, right? But it's interesting, and he had the chance to leave on a good note. That's the best note you can leave on, being a Stanley Cup champion. He's also trying to get towards that 1,000 game marker. But this contract is telling me, is he trying to get to 1,500 like Mike Modano? Wow. But, I love Dmitry Kulikov, and he surprised the hell out of me in the playoffs. He played such brilliant hockey. Phenomenal. Because in the regular season, he was strong. But again, we're going to get a lot of those calls during the season, fire Kulikov to the moon. What's he doing here? Some of our co-hosted speakers. So it'll be an interesting ride.
Hey, we get to use the cup. Hey, he got us a cup.
Yeah, he got us the cup. Yeah, that's going to be our line that we can always throw back to. Hopefully fans, I know fans will be able to laugh from that instead of kind of getting mad at us. But Cody, we'll get into this, I guess, now. And,
this is going to be a little bit somber.
This was a tough week for me. I had a potential to lose
every single one.
3 of my top 5 favorite Florida Panthers. Now, Reinhart re-signs, thankfully. I have him right in there in that Barkov realm. There's another gentleman that did not come back. And then another guy that's a fan favorite that we lost. And I'm going to talk about those 2 here briefly. I know I've tweeted about it, but I want to spend some time here on the podcast. And then, Cody, you can mention them as well, but I know you can probably touch on some of our other guys here. But Panthers say farewell here to Brandon Montour, who ended up signing with the Seattle Kraken. Ryan Lomberg, who is going back to the Calgary Flames organization, back to my city. It's going to be fun being able to watch him up close and personal here. We lose 2 players to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Anthony Stolarz. Kevin Stenlund, which was the surprising one that we'll get into here in a bit, goes to the Utah Hockey Club. Just recently here today, Vladimir Tarasenko, as of this recording, and Josh Mahura are no longer Florida Panthers. Tarasenko goes to the Detroit Red Wings. Josh Mahura off to the Seattle Kraken. And Nick Cousins and Lawrence, if you're looking at contracts right now and how much the Panthers have up against the cap here, probably will not be returning to the Panthers. But I'll start here with my guy, Money Montour, and I'll throw Ryan Lomberg in there as well. These are 2 of my favorite guys. Brian Montour, I'm so happy for him to get this extension and deal. This is something I thought he would get long-term wise with the Seattle Kraken. Around that 6'5", number, maybe north of there, which he ends up getting just above 7 million AAV long term with the Seattle Kraken. I'm high on Seattle this season. I was talking with my co-host Nick off the air. He is high on them too with the defense they're building there. Maybe they're 1 or 2 wingers short, but if they can kind of dip into that pool, they've got a lot of cap money still to spend. They're set down the middle of the ice with youngsters like Shane Wright, Matty Beniers. They got Yanni Gourde, the former Tampa Bay Lightning there, that can play a little bit further down their lineup. So again, I think he's going to a great situation there, a new head coach there. And Dan Bilesma, I'll be keeping a close eye on him, especially in my time zone, and I would anyways. But I'm really excited to see Seattle kind of push towards, I think, a fringe playoff spot, if not so a return to the playoffs. So I'm looking forward to seeing Brandon Montour there. He seemed to be very at peace with his post-game, what would you call it, exit meeting that they had on TSN, I believe it was, and I've been tweeting those out. And then Ryan Lomberg, just a fan favorite. As big as he was a fan favorite in South Florida, he's going to be mobbed in the city of Calgary. I hope he still is very sociable and extroverted guy, and he doesn't lose that coming to a big Canadian market, because this city is going to love him here in Calgary. Too much money, $2 million at 2 years. Panthers can't pay him that, especially when he's being healthy, scratch game in, game out. But the way that the Flames are going to pay him here, Cody, I don't think he's going to be sitting out many games. So you're going to get to see a lot of Ryan Lomberg. The
maybe
Battle of Alberta.
Minutes for Lomberg.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Battle of Alberta. Like, I recommend everyone to watch those Oiler Flames games. I think Panther fans are now invested in what the Oilers are doing after we played them last year in the Stanley Cup final. That's going to be awesome.
If Evander Kane stays an Oiler.
And I think with Florida Panther fans, Cody, Calgary no longer becomes that heel team with people that were upset with Huberdeau and Weegar going there because of what we just went through with Edmonton, and now the addition of Ryan Lomberg to Calgary. So there's a lot of former Florida Panthers now in that Calgary Flames dressing room. But yeah, anything that you want to mention on Montour, Lomberg's time here, and touch on the other guys as well if you want.
Just with Montour, I mean, I originally acquired for a 3rd-round pick from Buffalo in the 21 season. That's a guy that actually wanted that trade deadline. And to see what he became in Florida, that 73-point year when we needed it most, that Boston series will always have a special place in my heart, because without that, I don't think we're Stanley Cup champions today. And it just sucks, seeing him go, but he's getting paid the money that he deserves. Because I saw another defenseman get $7 million. I know Montour's 2 tiers above him. So
Brady Shea, you're referring to.
Like I said, with Montour, he will always be a Panther to me. I don't care how long he stays in Seattle.
That 58, 59-minute game in Carolina, the 4 overtimes,
I appreciate everything he did. Same with Lomberg, When you think of Ryan Lomberg, you think about that OT winner against Tampa in that 21 playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Him knocking out Keegan Colasar, becoming really, he was a fan favorite before that, but I think that solidified it.
Oh yeah, the ones that didn't know him at that point, which
constant energy every night. A guy that was always, it seemed, a very nice guy to be around.
Everything he did for the community down there, Cody.
Yeah, I mean, everyone I've talked to that's seen him said he's a very nice guy, cheery personality. How
many athletes match what your feelings are on them? Ryan Lomberg is that the epitome of that. Every person that has met him that has talked to us, he's just an awesome guy. And that's what gets me emotional. It's not the things I do on the ice, but the off the ice. And it's hard when fans message me, Cody, and they love some of the same guys that I love. And it's like, man, Kirby, this sucks.
This is going to be me next offseason. So if things play out the way I think they do.
Yeah. With our co-host Lex, it was last offseason for her with Gudis.
It might be next offseason again.
I'm in the fields this offseason. You might feel it next year, or other fans out there listening might feel it with some names out there. We got Verhaeghe and Bennett and Ekblad.
But Mahura, people have mixed feelings about him, but but I thought he was thrown into the fire last season. Him being the 6D, playing every single game. He had his rough nights, but he had some bright spots and we were in a cup final with him, so couldn't have been that horrible. Like I said, appreciate everything he did. Kevin Stenlund, another low key, signing that I don't think a lot of people realize how much of a big piece he was gonna be.
Well, that one stings me, Cody. I mentioned Montour, Lomberg. I just did not see this one coming. I saw the other two potentially coming. I did not see this coming. All the PK time, PK per per game per minutes. I think his second was in the NHL behind just Jake Evans of the Montreal Canadiens. Things that he did for us on the fourth line center role, matching up with the other team's best players. This one stings a bit, you know.
It stings, but appreciate everything he did, and we'll get into his replacement, who I think is a very adequate replacement for him. Then you have Lorentz, who really didn't play much, but when called upon in the playoffs, had some big moments. That game 3 goal in Tampa that really sealed the deal in that game. I think that was the GWG actually too.
Okay. That was his big moment game. Yeah.
Yep. And then you know how he had the deflection goal in game 2 against Boston to finally get the Panthers going in that series.
Another great guy in the room. He's Bobrovsky's
always had a smile on his face.
Shooter in practice. Yeah.
Yep.
Always smile on his face. He sat out so many games in the regular season, was a gamer, then had to step up in big moments in the playoffs by just being in the lineup where he's been sitting out, just a great guy.
Let's see.
We think these guys are going to be going.
Nick Cousins. Boy, he was what a train of topic this year was for Nicky C. But once again, a guy who was called upon to step up in huge times and just did just that. I mean, a lot of people's favorite goal last year, ending the Toronto Maple Leaf season.
Oh man, I've watched that about 30 times.
How fitting it was that Kyle Dubas's last game in Toronto was ended by Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound.
Yep. Nick Cousins.
And another all-around guy, a guy that's the guy seemed to love in the room.
Oh, he's going to be really missed in the room. They talked about guys that would host a podcast. We've already mentioned Montour, Mahura, Lomberg. Cousins is right there. Like, life of the party, life of the room. Losing a lot of that character that people sometimes, underestimate. That's what you're losing a lot of in these guys. And Nick Cousins at top of the list for that.
Yeah, just, it seemed like an likable guy off the ice. Just had his. I think he just had his first child not too long ago as well. I'm hoping he gets paid somewhere else because he deserves it.
Yeah, Ryan Lomberg just had his first kid here just last year and a half. Montour, they've got another one on the way too.
And that's one thing the fans don't think about. Just like, some of these guys are new dads, a new perspective. Like, they won a Stanley Cup. Yeah, they want to win, but they also got to put food on the table at the end of the day. Think about the kid's future. So they can't really be taking discounts like that anymore. Like, all the rest of them, like, they have more stuff to think about. But,
we got a few more there. The two guys in Toronto, Cody, and also
Solars.
Yeah.
Boy, you were better than I ever thought you would be.
Yeah. Roller coaster with fans that really support them, fans that were really hard on, the fans that we
heard it all year.
We heard it all year, the whole game.
The Islander games.
The Islander game, the Anaheim game, But then you look at what he did in the Toronto game, especially the Nashville game. And what he did down the stretch, pretty much
St.
lights
Louis
out the
was
last
another one too.
Yep.
Like, I just think a lot of people people just, I just think some people just didn't want to like him because he's not Spencer Knight.
Yeah, he's not Alex Lyon.
Yeah.
No.
But I still have that funny moment of him in Ottawa sitting on the bench when half the team got thrown out of trying, like, holding Forsling stick, acting like he's a skater or whatever. Like, he is a great one. An OEL guy came in to revitalize his career, and he just did just that.
Wow. You saw what he did in Vancouver, Cody. You had a close eye on him. That marketplace was so hard on him, and he had that big contract that he had. They couldn't live up to
break in that market.
Yep.
And stuck with bad partner after bad partner. And, he goes to a team that, like, that needed him because we needed him at the start of the year, with Montour and Ekblad out.
Yep.
And he did a phenomenal job, in my opinion.
And he bought into the Maurice system like no other.
Just, another guy who you're not going to win the Stanley Cup without. Like, every single guy we just named had a significant contribution one way or another on this team. And this is why Zito focuses so much on these depth signings. And, like, I think a lot of fans hate that because they're like, I think a lot of fans miss the thrill of free agency. Like, oh my gosh, who are we going to get? Are we going to get this big name?
Yeah.
Nope. The only big name we have gotten has been through the trade market. I don't think we've signed one big time free agent since Zito's been here.
Yeah.
Like I said, the biggest contract he signed was Gudis / Mikkola.
Might be right on that.
So he's not a big free agency spender. Then again, he hasn't really had the money to go all all out for it. But
And we said that about fans, about OEL not, he's going to price himself out. You and I said that about Gudas last season, and we said this about OEL. And again, we go live after every game and we get those questions. It's like, yeah, there's no way. I don't think that they're going to be signing OEL. And Toronto was in on all defensemen, and they end up locking.
They were on the defensemen and their mothers. Oh my lord.
Yeah, Tanev and Hakanpää, OEL. They've got half a new decor coming in there on all different pairings. So it'll be interesting. You'll see OEL. I don't know, somewhere between that second,
team
third
trying
pairing.
to copy what Florida just did.
Yeah, you might get some power play one time, which a lot of our fan base wanted. But again, these guys are going to be stretched to the limit for what some of these teams are going to ask them to do. You look at Anthony Stolarz and OEL, a lot of pressure on them going into that Toronto market. So wish them well. See how it goes.
And then the last two are trade deadline acquisitions, Tarasenko and Okposo. Tarasenko solidifying our top 9. Had a rough go at it for a little bit, but finished it out really good. And then Okposo gave us great fourth line minutes. Happy he's going to retire with the cup. Like I said, all those guys will have a special place in my heart because all those guys had a part in bringing in the Florida Panthers their first ever Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and again, we'll touch base on this a little bit in closing here after the break here. But I just wanted to let everyone know our sponsor, Caneswear, the new Stanley Cup merchandise is in. Panthers fever is officially here. Are you geared up? Caneswear and Davies is a place for all your Florida Panthers need. They have the latest gear for our favorite NHL team. Jerseys, polos, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Caneswear has you covered. Stop by their store in Davie or at pantherswear.com. Again, that's Pantherswear, WEAR.com for all your Panthers gear.
This is the Cats and Rats podcast. And now, a special segment.
Yeah, and just before our break there from Caneswear, I just wanted to, again, just say all the best to Vladimir Tarasenko here. We got a lot of questions on if he was going to return to the Panthers, but I just don't think there was any cap space available. And then when you get into that RFA Lundell deal, a lot of the money was going to be tied up there. And, whatever future endeavors here for Kyle Poso, he's got things to decide here, if retirement or if he's signing somewhere. Again, all the best to Kyle Poso and everything that he brought to the Panthers here. One of the most memorable pictures was Poso just soaking it all in the Panthers dressing room after the Game 7 Stanley Cup final victory. That was a great photo to kind of see, and I made sure to put that up on our Instagram feed there, so our story. So again, I'm curating all of the Stanley Cup final memories on our Instagram page there, Cats and Rats Podcast. You go into there and you can see all the highlights there from the Stanley Cup championship win. I'm still putting more in there, so I'll have lots more to add to there throughout this summer. But let's get to the new Panthers additions here. We're going to get into a little bit more film study when our co-host Nick gets back stateside, as he's overseas right now. So shout out to Nick there. We look forward to having you back here in the next podcast or two. Nick does a great job on our film study on our new Panther editions, like he did last summer with Mikkola, Erod, OEL, and so forth. But yeah, let's just get through the new Panther editions here. First off, AJ Greer comes over from the Calgary Flames, 2-year contract at $850K per year. Jesper Boquist from the Boston Bruins via the New Jersey Devils as well. He's on a 1-year, $775K deal. Mackenzie Entwistle, this one's an interesting one, a young player out of the Chicago Blackhawks system, 1 year at $795K. I haven't done much digging on him yet, but I look forward to watching some film on him over the next week or two and letting all of you know in our Cats and Rats community what he brings to the table. Thomas Nosek, we presumably feel that Cody was alluding to earlier, this will be our 4C replacing Kevin Stenlund. He signs at a 1-year, $775K deal, coming over from the New Jersey Devils, previously the Boston Bruins, and I believe as well the Vegas Golden Knights when they came into the NHL. And then this is the one that I really, there's two more here. This is the one I really am kind of focused on of what he's going to bring to the table here because it's a much needed position. Nate Schmidt, the defenseman from Winnipeg, signs a 1-year, $800K deal. He was bought out by the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets were paying him $5.9 million per year. So this is a buy low candidate, a buyout candidate. You can look back to what OEL was for us last year. Hopefully he's able to do some of those same things coming over to the Florida Panthers. And then Cody mentioned this one to me. I didn't have it in my notes. I'm running out of space here on my cue card. Chris Driedger, the former Florida Panther, he's not listed right now on their official roster. I think they have him down the minors, but it is a one-way deal. I checked here. 1-year deal at $795K. Presumably, I think of the third goalie here. But again, if any trades happen, he's going to be asked to do more. He's had some injury problems since leaving the Panthers, going over to the Seattle Kraken there. So he returns to the Florida Panthers. Again, he reunites with Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight, who he was with, for moving off to the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft. So lots to take in there, Cody. Where would you like to start?
Well, I'll first start off with the one that we know, Chris Driedger. Dale Talon, how's it? You should look at what Bill Zito did in an expansion draft and learn how to not tear your team apart from it. Because guess what? We get the guy back 3 years later. Isn't that nice? Mm-hmm. But Chris Driedger, we all know, was a big time goalie for us. In Bob's first 2 years as a Panther, where they were the rough 2 years.
Yep. He really helped us to stabilize that goaltending position when Bob wasn't really finding his game behind that new defensive floor. Now, the final memories of Chris Driedger weren't great. That's where he struggled in those playoffs against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We end up going to our third string goalie in Spencer Knight, who's able to get us, I believe, that Game 5 victory, and then comes up 1 goal or so short in that Game 6 loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first matchup against the Lightning. So then that's where the roster construction crunch was for the Panthers. We knew we'd be losing a goalie in that situation. It was going to be Chris Driedger. So any expectations on him?
Third goalie. Comes when needed. And I have confidence he could give us some good minutes because the past time in Florida, and normally when goalies go back to a place where they've been good in the past, they usually stay that way.
Same goaltending coach, same goaltending department that he was dealing with. Now the main thing with him is injuries. Hopefully he can.
He did tear his ACL a couple years ago, away from when he was in Seattle. But he is a Calder Cup runner-up with the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who fell to the Hershey Bears, which are
there we go.
Dominant franchise in the AHL.
Yep. Cody throwing some knowledge on me that I wasn't aware of coming in. So yeah. Coachella Valley, they're very good team in the AHL too, Cody. They're building a really good organization there.
Yeah. Had a 917 and a 2.26 GAA in this offseason. Currently listed with the Charlotte Checkers, but has solid numbers. In Florida, he had the 938 in those 12 games and then followed it up with the 927 in 23 games. This is a guy who I believe when counted upon, he could give us a good game or two, because I think, as Zito has shown in the last couple of years, he believes highly in the third goaltender position.
Yes, Alex Lyon. And then this past year, Anthony Stolarz, which, both those guys were not heralded coming into Florida. I was a little higher on Lyon than Stolarz, and look at the numbers that Stolarz put up. So
yeah, but Stolarz played for worse teams, so it wasn't really much to go off of there.
And you couldn't go off a lot. It's hard to go off a film with goalies too, and you're playing behind a porous defense or a porous team. So again, and Lyon was a guy that had some experience in AHL, which Driedger has now got some of that under his belt here. I'd like to go to Nate Schmidt next, Cody. I'm excited about this.
This is the most intriguing signing by Florida. And let me preface this by getting this out the way. Nate Schmidt was not bought out of Winnipeg because of underperformance. Huh? This wasn't like an OEL type deal where he fell off a cliff. No, he fell out of favor with the coach and they were paying him too much money.
$5.9 million.
Yes,
we talk about our guys like Forsling, what he signed for, Montour, what he signed for in Seattle. That's a lot of money for
Don't forget, he signed this contract back when he was in Vegas.
Okay.
So the Winnipeg never signed them to this deal. Vegas did.
Good point.
So for those who don't know, Nate Schmidt was a part of the original Vegas Misfits who miraculously made the Stanley Cup final, but lost to the Washington Capitals at 5 back in 2018. He was probably their most point-produced defenseman at the time, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right on that. We were going through the defensive core, the expansion.
This was back when Shea Theodore really wasn't a household name. He was still more of a...
Came from Anaheim.
Yeah, he was still a
relative unknown. Yeah, kind of like Montour when he came in with us. Kind of wasn't that level.
He was second in defense scoring for Vegas that year. Colin Miller was first.
They had Derek Englund from Calgary that wasn't going to produce offense.
Yep. But he played 20 minutes a night for that Vegas team. I'm pretty sure he was that power play quarterback for them initially.
Yeah, I think so. We didn't pull up his power play numbers earlier on our Spaces episode with Anton Lundell sign. We actually got into Nate Schmidt talk a little bit there.
Had 11 points. He's had 2 separate years that he's had 11 power play points. One, that initial Vegas year that we talk about, he was a power play quarterback, then playing 22-14 a night.
Mm-hmm.
And then his first season in Vegas, his first season in Winnipeg, my apologies, where he put up 32 points, had 11 power play points, but also had 20 minutes and 12 seconds of ice time in that season.
And this is a guy that's familiar a little bit, of course, with the Paul Maurice system and what will be kind of asked upon him. And yes. Cody, you guys mentioned to me some of our people from our community how good of a skater he is, and maybe I haven't picked up on that, but I'm starting to watch film and I'm like, yeah, I can see how fluid of a skater is, and remembering back to some of his games. But I remember watching his games in Vegas and in Winnipeg. He's got a sneaky, dangerous shot from the point. Yeah, and people are like, oh, Kirby, I didn't realize that till I went through the footage. And I was like, you're right, he does. And I'm like, yeah, that's the one thing that stood out to me for him. That sneaky kind of blast from the point. So that's something that's very much needed on this Panthers blue line. Produce a little bit of offensive production, have that shot that can be accurate and on net that you talk about often, Cody. So I'm looking forward to see what his shot looks like.
Just make the shot typical. That's all you need. Just make it typical.
Yeah. And I think he likes to put along the ice level, just along the pad there. He's not trying to rip it, top cheese or whatever from the point. So again, this is a guy that maybe could transport the puck out of the zone, play the Paul Maurice system, maybe be able to, even though he's an older defenseman. What is he, 33? What is he?
32, if I'm not mistaken.
32, okay. Might be a little older than that, but he check for me on that one, please. But just to be able to activate from the point, Cody, and keep pucks in, I think he could still do that in the latter stages of his career.
He's 32.
32, okay, yeah.
About to turn 33 in about 2 weeks.
So you're looking at people like, who's the OEL replacement? Well, here you go. This is it. Everything that the buyout, the age, what he can maybe produce offensively. Maybe I think he could probably play some PK too as well. I know we have Mikkola and Kulikov there, but I think he could fit into that role. Heck, we had Montour play some minutes there. OEL played minutes on the PK last year. So I think Schmidt can be an all-purpose guy for us potentially.
Yeah, and I do believe he has played some of the right side defense,
which is important with all these left-handed defensemen that we still have, right?
Yeah, so he can't play the right side as of right now.
So we're thinking with Mikkola maybe?
I have him second pair with Mikkola.
No.
Because I'm still not too crazy about
he's playing Montour's position, but he is the OEL replacement. If you're
there has not been a Montour replacement as of yet. I think the Montour replacement might end up like the Uyghur replacement being we never found one.
Never found one, or it's got to come through a trade that we're waiting on.
Yes, but going into the next two guys, because these next two guys tie into each other here, Kirby. Tomasz Nosek and AJ Greer. And meaning, Nosek.
I want you to speak on Nosek a bit, because I got some stuff on Greer.
Nosek, fourth line center, has been on some really good teams. The inaugural Vegas team, he made the cup final with those guys, so he has familiarity with Nate Schmidt. He's bounced around the league a little bit.
Played with the Boston Bruins in the President's Trophy year of the Bruins.
Yep, Bruins. Those 2 years. One,
he had a run-in with Matthew Tkachuk there.
Yes, where Tkachuk has said some things that I can't repeat on this podcast, but
some choice words.
That's here nor there. But he played 66 games for Boston in that historic season, and had 18 points in 66 games, typical fourth line numbers. But one thing that sticks out to me for that year, his faceoff percentage. He averaged, last season, he only played 30 games. He got hurt, not a big sample size there, so not much to go off there. But that regular season, his faceoff percentage was 59.3%.
Wow.
And he has played, he's averaged about, his career average on ice time is 12 minutes and 11 seconds. So right around where Stenlund was at for us. And, I think he's a bit smaller than Stenlund. I could be wrong, but Nosek is 6'3", 205, bigger
He's
guy.
got a long reach. He's a bigger guy.
Yeah, so you're not losing much size on the fourth line there. And I believe, if you wanted a Kevin Stenlund replacement, I think this is it.
Now, are you worried about injury concern, like we mentioned about Chris Drieger? Is there some of that
Not
factored
real.
into play here?
If it was more than one season, yes, but it's just one season.
Okay. So kind of erase that from the memory books and then look back to what
Yeah.
he was doing in Boston and prior.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm intrigued by it. I don't feel I like our other co-host Nick here. We were talking off air. We're not as high on him coming into this season as Nick and I were with Stanley. And again, we went and watched film on him. So let's give this a couple weeks here. We'll go back and watch some Nosek film and different things. But yeah, it's a comparable. You do save a little money. I just wish, that Zito would have spent on Stanley. You had the option to maybe bring Nosek in and you just continue to have that deeper fourth line if you're able to maneuver some dollars and things like that. But it is what it is. Cup tax. You get pinched out by guys, and that's what happened with Kevin Stanley. So hopefully Nosek fills there. And then you wanted to talk about Jesper Boquist. Now, I like that name, but not for the reason that some of you may be thinking. That was intriguing to me coming into this.
The other one. He's still out there.
The brother. Yep. Adam
the
Boquist.
Panthers still could go get him, which I hope they do.
Yeah, he was our top of our board. Yours, mine, and Nick's coming into July 1st. People were asking for names. That was we didn't have a lot of time to prepare names, but we did prepare some.
We got to get AJ Greer first, though, because there is a connection. There is a connection between those two.
Okay. Yes, there is.
But what are your thoughts on AJ Greer?
Oh, you're waiting on me here. Yeah, these two guys played together in Boston, Cody, and I remember AJ Greer and Nosek, but AJ Greer giving us some headaches, like on the forecheck, a lot of zone time, cycle play. I'm like, who is this guy? And I kind of lost track of him, funny enough, in my hometown of Calgary. He's really good. He's kind of a sneaky player, like skating wise. I think he can move really good through all three zones. He can carry the puck in. He'll also, if he's not carrying the puck, he'll go to the net. And I saw a couple of his goals, like with tips and deflections from the point. And that is kind of the standard bread and butter Paul Maurice 5-on-5 hockey. If you watch, especially during the regular season, game in, game out, we're just getting pucks on net. So AJ Greer is going to get to those areas, look for tips and deflections. I'm not saying my expectation of him is super high. He could be a guy that's like a 12th, 13th forward in and out of the lineup with a guy like Jonah Gadjevich slotting in above him or below him. You've got the William Lockwoods of the world, Rasmus Asplund, that I think the organization believes highly in. You've got these different guys that are going to be able to cycle in and out. So it's really hard to determine, Cody, this offseason so far. And it's just early into the offseason because we've just started here. But I kind of projected last year Stenlund to be the center on the line of the fourth line with Cousins and Lomberg. We think, as you just mentioned, Nosek will be the fourth C. It's kind of interesting who those wingers will be around Nosek. But Greer does have some of that chemistry synergy from Nosek back to Boston Bruins. And AJ Greer also played in the Devils. You're going to see a lot of connections here, right? He came from the Devils, then moved over to Boston. He's also Toronto Maple Leaf killer. I was watching some highlights on AJ Greer, and nice goal, top shelf. I think that beat Samsonov, and they're like, AJ Greer scores on the Toronto Maple Leafs for the second time this week. And I'm like, this is interesting.
Top cheese always beats Samsonov. But
yeah. So knows where to beat those Toronto goaltenders and that Toronto organization. So that's always good to have. But Cody, what do you have? He also had a kind of a serious injury there in Calgary, I think last year, that ended his season. He was going in on a hit and kind of went awkwardly into the sideboard. I don't know if it was his ankle or his knee, but he had to be helped off the ice there. So that kind of, I think, shortened his season last year in Calgary. Calgary liked him. I got some feedback from their fans. They liked the energy and the things that he brings.
We'll see. It's just like, it's just tough with that injury. But hey, but the thing about AJ Greer is, like, once again, he's had 12 points in back-to-back years, so typical fourth line production. But he's a guy who will not back down from anyone.
Yes, good point.
Which is a very typical Panthers player, because let's be real here, his last in 61 games in the Boston's crazy historical regular season, he had 114 PIMs.
Wow. He dropped the gloves with the likes of Wayne Simmons, Nicholas Delorier, some really heavyweights.
And he's his weight class. A big boy here, 6'3", 209. Mm-hmm. So this is a guy who isn't going to be like, he's your Lomberg replacement. And
I'm thinking of like a body like a RIP, but like a store brand Jimmy Hayes. He's got some size to him that, rangy. He can skate all right. Can get to the areas of the ice that you want him to get to. It's just, might have that limited offensive
It's just the
upside
size
also.
now. Like with Ryan Lomberg at times, the size just limited him.
Yes.
Now we're not going to have that limit here with AJ Greer.
Mm-hmm.
And, you still have that scrappy fourth liner who's going to protect his teammates. Because AJ Greer, through his first couple interviews as a Panther, has sounded very excited to be here. And 2-year deal. They really believe in this guy, so you're going to hear a lot of his name. And I think
that's true. He's the only 2-year deal, right? Of all these names here that I'm looking at.
But I believe he will become a fan favorite fairly quickly. Because someone's going to take a run at Bob or something, and he's going to be there.
Yep.
And I just can't wait to see it. But next up, I think this is my personal favorite signing of the offseason so far.
Yep.
And that is Jesper Boqvist.
You've dug in on him. You already have a line projection for him. You're really high on this player.
Yes. Jesper Boqvist is the guy who has the most potential out of all of our free agent signings. Nate Schmidt is probably going to put up the most points. But Boqvist, to me, has the most untapped potential here.
Do we throw out the name Rudy Balzers from a couple off seasons ago that had like that higher end potential that he
guy I was never high on? Yep.
Okay.
Like, I'm just gonna be real here. I'm not expecting this guy to be a 20 goal scorer, 30 goal scorer. Like, Bill Zito found another gem. If he does, you could come back to this podcast and say I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if he does, we're in very, very good shape.
But you're high on him. But you're projecting like a 15, 18 goal projection?
I think 15 at his peak because he's had 10 goals back-to-back years. He had 6 last year, but only played in 47 games.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a guy who is very good defensively, but has sneaky skill. Very sneaky. Like, it's not like out of the world skill, but it's good enough skill that he can get you a goal here and there.
I've only watched little film on him so far. I would lean more 60-70% playmaker versus finisher, but he has the capabilities for both.
Yeah. And for those who don't remember this guy or the name sounds familiar, he's the one who scored the OT winner on our last matchup against Boston.
Mm-hmm.
The one that was on ABC towards the end of the year. He was the one that scored the OT winner, and it was a pretty nice goal at that as well. Just in terms of him, I think he could step up in the third line role if we needed to.
Yeah, some people are mentioning Mackie Samoskevich, but this is a guy in Boqvist that is a candidate for the third line third line winger spot where we lose Vladimir Tarasenko to free agency. And then you got Erod maybe playing higher up.
Is he a Tarasenko? No, he's not. But he could do a little things, and I think he'll fit in quite well. And let's get.
I think he skates well enough. Can finish around the net.
And this is going to be a topic going into training camp in the summer, and that is Mackie Samoskevich there, Kirby.
Indeed.
And I have a little bit of an idea. And I know people haven't pegged for the third line here. I just propose one little thing. Why don't we put him on, a Barkov line to start with here? Just hear me out here.
Yeah, well, that's what they were trying to do last offseason there with Denisenko that, ended up getting waived. I don't know why they signed him, but that's neither here nor there.
I think they expected more of him and then to just never panned out.
Yeah, I think he got sick there, and I think Maurice was done with him after that.
Yeah, but Samoskevich is already at probably a little bit past Denisenko's level, and this is his first full year.
Yep. Got that full training camp last year, all those exhibition games against Nashville. And
he looked pretty good in some of them. And he came up in the middle of the year, had a good game against Nashville. I remember that game. He had a breakaway, nearly scored. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I want to put him with Barkov here is I want him to just react to the game and not think. Let Barkov and Reinhart do all the thinking for him. Just let him react.
Good point. I like that.
And who's not going to put him in a better place than the two smartest players on the team?
Yeah, you better be ready because they're going to turn pucks over and just be there and react and let it go.
Yeah, just let him play hockey. Let him get used to the speed. Because I think Lundell, I think you're going to need more out of him to get that line going.
Yeah, and then that's going to struggle offensively. Yes. Turnovers in the neutral zone. You get into trouble with things like that.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking. Like you put him on you move Erod to the third line. You know that third line has had success. You know what's going to work here.
Erod will play anywhere, like he said.
Yes,
I'll play
anywhere in the top 9. You could put him anywhere like in the playoffs.
He even played in the fourth line last year.
Yeah.
I don't want him that far down.
Oh, hell no. But like anywhere in the top 9, he'll be good. It's just that's how I feel with it. Just let him play. And one thing I do want us to do, if he struggles, don't scratch him. Just let him struggle for a little bit. Let him figure it out.
Okay.
Just give him a little bit more of a leash here.
And Maurice isn't going to put pressure on him to play power play or any PK. No. It's just focus on your 5-on-5 play.
Start there and go from there. And in terms of developing a player, I don't think we give much of the young guys a leash, which is what I believe he needs. Just a little bit of a leash to give him some time to learn.
Well, but like Lockwood's got playing time last year, and other guys have, where you're kind of like, okay, let's switch it up here. And they've run with guys a little bit longer than you thought. But like, I get what you're saying with Mackey. Just let him go a bit, maybe work his way through mistakes. I think working his way through mistakes, if you do have him on that top line with Barkov, it's not going to be so glaring as if he's playing on the third line. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if he's making mistakes down there on the third line, I think it's going to stand out a lot.
Let me ask you something. Just like ask the listener who's thinking about it. Let me ask you, who would you rather have him clean up his mistakes for? Barkov and Reinhart, or Lundell, Luosterainen?
No. And, Lundell and Lusto are very sound defensively, but to play and pick up errors for someone else, that's asking a lot, I think.
Yeah, and they're both like still young. They're still like, they haven't hit their prime yet, either of them yet. That'll be soon, but I just think you put them with the reigning Selke winner to kind of help them out a little bit.
You're selling me on this, and we didn't talk about this previously off air, so I do like where you're going here.
Just put a young guy with an experienced guy. I don't like 3 young guys on the line together, really, to be honest with you. I know Lundell has more experience now. It's just, it's different coming from Barkov and Reinhart.
Oh, and people love the Mackey Samoskevich content. We're pretty measured with him last year, but everything that you see on social media, people are going to have questions about that in camp, in the offseason here. When you get to, people will watch preseason games just for him alone, rookie development camp games.
Him and Knight are going to get a lot of views.
Yeah, like even Knight last year when he was at the development camps. And
future Masterson Trophy winner, Spencer Knight. I'm calling it now.
Oh, yeah. I was hearing someone ask me about candidates earlier for that, and I was trying to tell them the difference between the Mark Messier Award and the Bill Masterton Award. The Bill Masterton Award is perseverance through sport. The Mark Messier Award is like leadership and things that are done in the community on and off the ice and things like that. So,
Messier is more of a Duclair Award. Like Anthony Duclair does a lot of this stuff off the ice.
But where Duclair would come back from the injury 2 years ago,
Masterson.
If he had a huge year, then he
think
would
of the Masterson as a comeback player of the year award for those who don't know.
Yep.
Robin the NFL has one. I believe the MLB has one.
Okay.
Just something along those lines. But I believe Spencer Knight will win the Masterson because I expect him to be pretty good this year.
Wow, one of Cody's hot takes or projections here. Me and Cody, we're not going to get into this now, but we will this summer on the podcast. Our difference in opinions on some of those Western Conference teams, but we'll save that for another day. But you guys got to tune in on our Spaces shows. They're pretty lively.
So a main one popped up today.
Yeah. Yeah, we had. And then Mackenzie Entwistle, 1-year deal, $75K.
From what I've heard of him, very hardworking, very energetic, and a guy who just loves hockey. I saw his mom quote tweet the signing.
I saw that. That was interesting.
And that's a very good thing. Mom's always going to support her little baby boy. And fun fact about Mackenzie Entwistle, he was the one, I believe, who scored the empty netter in the now infamous Chicago Blackhawks Pittsburgh Penguins game.
All we talk about is Buddy Robinson, but that was him. Okay.
That was the empty netter, I believe, Entwistle scored.
Oh, yeah.
That infamous game that has changed the fortunes of the Florida Panthers.
We did a live virtual watch party for that at the time.
That was crazy.
It's crazy. All the people that were watching it together, Panther fans. How far we've come, now here at Stanley Cup.
Went from praying for a playoff spot to now enjoying a Stanley Cup final victory.
Yeah, in a matter of 1 calendar year. So crazy. The Panthers have about 766K cap remaining, I believe.
I did do some number crunching. And in this number crunching, and Entwistle and Tobias Bjornfot are in the minors.
Okay.
And I called the Mackey Samoskevich.
Yeah, with your lineup.
Yeah, so you have 13 forwards. I from what the numbers I calculated, we have about $1.3 million in cap space to do something else. Get
Okay.
another defenseman. Hey, Adam Boquist, wink, wink.
Okay. So opening up that 600K more by moving guys
Yeah,
around there. Yeah.
yeah, because as of right now, I don't have too much faith in Bjorn Fott being your seventh D. And, you have an older guy like Schmidt and Kulikov. There's going to be an injury there. Like they're going to miss like 4 or 5 games. I don't feel 100% comfortable with him being your seventh. But if you bring
Yeah.
it, but if you bring in another D and like they're your seventh or Balinskis is your seventh, I think you're better off.
Yeah, you've got options with Blinkist and Bjornfoot there. So which one it's going to be, I think you got to play that out in camp and see
And
what you have there. Especially Bjornfoot that didn't get much run. He looked good in that Ranger game. Blinkist looked good at times this year, but he really struggled. I remember that home
yeah,
game
but
versus the Bruins. That
the
was
thing
a
with
tough
Bjorn
one for
Fott
him.
though, Maurice never seemed like he had too much confidence in him,
Okay.
like based off the press conference and based off the ice time.
Yeah, the ice time is a big indicator with Paul Maurice. People that want to know about lineups, go back and look at ice times. We talked about that with formerly Florida Panther Josh Mahura, who wouldn't get a lot of time. At times, Kulikov, that wasn't getting a lot of run. It's like Maurice will play with 5D a lot of times out there. So that six guy doesn't matter. But this year, with losing those 22, 23 minutes from Brandon Montour, that middle pairing, you're going to have guys really bump up their minute allocation, the Nate Schmitz, and then whatever one of Blinkis or Bjornfoot will be in the lineup too. Like you can't no longer are the days of, Josh Mahura playing 5 to 8 minutes. These guys in the lineup are going to
Oh,
have to contribute penalty kill, power play, not just 5-on-5 and, being stapled to the bench at times. So
Nick, I
yeah,
remember Nick every night about those.
yeah, Nick's missing this podcast here. I'm pretty sure when he comes back, we'll talk about Josh Mahura a lot. So yeah, Cody, anything in closing there on our additions?
No, I mean I'm excited to see. Do I think the Panthers? I think they got one more move up their sleeve,
I
but
hope. Yeah.
well, we'll stay tuned. Like I said, I like our offseason so far. Once again, it sucks really losing all these guys, but after coming up a Stanley Cup, it's really impossible to really improve.
Yeah, we knew we were going to lose close to a half
But hey,
dozen.
we won a Stanley Cup to so live off on that. Those guys got a very nice farewell from the Panthers, from the Panther fans with the parade and all
Yep.
the Stanley Cup winning parties.
Oh, that's, memories to take in for a lifetime. So much people in our community that were there for that. Shout out to Carly, Rosanna, Adam, Matthew H., who was actually on one of the buses floats with Matthew Kachuk and Sam Bennett. So
But
that was cool.
big shout out to our boy Caesar also.
Caesar. Oh, yeah. The big hug there with Paul Maurice.
Big inspiration within the Panther community. A guy who
Oh, man.
just a joy to talk to and be around for a
He was on our. Yeah, go ahead, Cody.
a guy who like on spaces, always has, he knows puck.
Mm-hmm. And he had some health matters last playoffs where he didn't get to see that run by the Panthers. So I feel so great for Caesar to be in better spirits, better health right now. That moment with Paul Maurice, he joined us for our Instagram live as well before one of the Stanley Cup final games there that you guys can check out over on our Instagram page there. So he's just a huge supportive member of this community, a big speaker on our post-game show now. So happy for fans like Caesar to be able to take this in. So
But
Cody, other than that, any plugs here? I want everyone to follow our YouTube channel. We're getting close to 100 subscribers there. We're going to start to go to some video content over there.
Yep.
Obviously, I also have the link tree in our ad description there, so you can find all of our links there. It's also all posted there. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple, appreciate all the clicks over there on YouTube. In the meantime as well, we're going to do spaces off-season stuff here, maybe weekly, bi-weekly, just for little hangout sessions and things like that. Any news that breaks. Obviously, you never know with Zito with any type of trades. We'll go live right away. And then we'll try to have all that coverage here on the podcast side too. We're going to have one of our co-hosts, Vincent, come by, talk about his experiences going to the draft in Vegas there. So we're going to have some content there. We have a guest in store from the Panthers media side. Hopefully we'll be able to get that individual on, working on some different guests as well from around the NHL, especially that we won the Stanley Cup. Now it's going to be cool to hear from different media and content personality perspectives on what a magical ride this was for the Florida Panthers here, capturing their first Stanley Cup in 30 years.
Yep, just can't wait to see. We have a lot of ideas coming in the offseason. One, where we're going to need you guys to vote on some things, but can't wait to get to it.
Yeah, sounds good. I just want to thank my co-host here today, Cody, as always. Look forward to having our other partner in crime back, Nick, returning from his month-long vacation here. Lots more in store here in the off-season, so make sure you're plugged in, tuned in, you're following us on all of our socials. And like we always say, let's go Cats.